Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to debate against the bill.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Idaho is purported to be a conservative state. The makeup of our body kind of depicts that we have a large majority of Republicans in this House and in the Senate, a similar proportion over in the Senate. In the body across the rotunda. I apologize. Each of us here who call ourselves Republicans do so because we agree to a certain set of principles called our party platform that was last revised in 2012. I'm sure each of us here who call ourselves Republicans are very familiar with that document and the principles that it outlines. Part of it says something like this. We recognize that all government is financed by taxing its citizens, and therefore good, responsible government means that we keep it as small as possible. We reduce the cost of government. We try and be fiscally conservative. I've been tracking this session, the spending increases we've been doing, and identifying some that perhaps we could have waited on or done something else with, perhaps funding teachers, or because now we've advanced that appropriation and advanced the fourth step in the career ladder, maybe other things, maybe roads, maybe road repair. We talked about tax relief earlier today. There's lots of other things we could do with this funding. I've totaled it out to about 69 bills that have extra spending items that we might have directed elsewhere, to a total of $101 million that I've just been able to spot, and these are the increases. These aren't even base budgets. And, if we get into the base budgets, maybe there's a lot more efficiencies that we could identify to save ourselves some money and to save ourselves difficult decisions like the one we're facing now. We came into this session in January. LSO estimated that we had about $140 million in excess revenues over and above what we expected. Still on the bottom line there, $140 million. Our budget stabilization fund right now is at $259.4 million. And this year we're going to add another $33 million, bringing us up to $292.9 million, essentially in the state's savings account. College and university reserves are at $159.9 million. Add this all up, and we have in our essential Idaho bank accounts $592.8 million that are set aside. Some of it's set aside for what we call a rainy day. We've had a rainy day this year if we look at roads and road repair. But the good news about that road repair is that we just passed a bill this morning. Permission to reference other legislation, Mr. Speaker. Unanimous consent request.
Without objection. Gentleman may reference other pieces of legislation that are germane to this issue.
Fair enough. Thank you. The S1141 this morning was another $52 million to meet our immediate road repair needs. That's in addition to the $11 million that we took from the surplus eliminator in January. So to this point, we've already appropriated $63 million for road repair. This bill, S1206, does nothing for current road repair. The $300 million in bonding is for future projects. The other parts of this are about extending the surplus eliminator, which will be helpful perhaps for road repair in subsequent years, but not for this year, because January 2018 is the first time that we'll be accessing that if we extend it. Currently, our state is $15.1 billion in bonded debt. The first Garvey we did, those many years ago, was $890 million or so. We've paid down some of those Garvey bonds. Now we're at $554 million of outstanding Garvey bonds. This bill, S1206, will add another $300 million, bringing us back to almost where we started. It's like we've paid off a lot of our house, and we're going to take a second mortgage or a home equity line of credit and add right back onto it, for an analogy. So it would bring us right back up to about $854 million of debt that we would owe to Garvey. The surplus eliminator, I find, is is an interesting concept that it automatically allocates excess revenues to this eliminator budget that can then be used for road repairs. But did you know we don't have to have a surplus eliminator, because if we do have money coming in over what's appropriated, we can go ahead and appropriate it ourselves. We don't have to tie our hands today with a surplus eliminator. We could appropriate it for roads next year if we wanted to. We could appropriate it for whatever we saw our needs are. So this bill is asking us, or we are telling taxpayers that we are going to borrow money from the federal government, we are going to cover a large chunk of that interest, and we are ignoring the fact that we have all this money in our savings account. I don't see how we can call ourselves fiscally conservative when we have the money to do it, yet we're going into debt another $300 million to pay for roads out into the future. We have the money. We don't need to go into debt to do it. And have a quote here. Thomas Jefferson said, "I place economy among the first and most important virtues, and public debt as the greatest of dangers to be feared. To preserve our independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. If we run into such debts, we must be taxed in our meat and drink, in our necessities and in our comforts, in our labor and in our amusements." When we become dependent on federal dollars, we are indebted to the federal government. It comes with obligations. We tie our hands to what we can do in the future. If we have the money, fiscal conservatism says that we use it now. And it really doesn't matter to me whether it's called general funds or something else. It doesn't make a difference to the taxpayer. They feel the hit exactly the same way. I'm opposed to 1206. There's a better way to do this, and I appreciate your no vote on this bill. Thank you.